It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Robin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obiuchendo. Thanks a lot for joining us. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you celebrating. It's supposed to be a day of love, even though a lot of us are not particularly feeling that way. Regardless of what part of the country you are, there seems to be a plethora of issues, especially security-wise. From the north to the south, everywhere there seems to be something going on, and people are pretty tense, nervous, not very happy. But hopefully the spirit of love and Valentine's gets to seep in to our home somehow, and we have a calm day and hopefully a better week ahead. We're going to be starting off the show today talking about a lot of things that have happened the past week. Now, during the week, we did hear from the Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry that was set up to investigate issues around SARS operations and the alleged shooting at the Lekki tollgate on the 20th of October 2020. There was a vote apparently to reopen or to repossess the Lekki tollgate by the Lagos State Government, or the LCC, which evoked some reactions from Nigerians, and a protest was planned. And we saw what happened yesterday, and things didn't particularly go very well. I'm being joined now by Fisayo, Soyombo, who's a journalist. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, so a lot happened yesterday, and I know you were actively following a lot of the situations. Tell us exactly how we got there. And, we saw a lot of images, a lot of videos, people being arrested, people walking by. Why did the protest still have to happen yesterday?
Because there were issues from the original NSAS protests that were not addressed. Now, talking about how we got here, you see, we got here in the first place because there was an attempt to use hoodlums to halt protests by Nigerians, all over, in states where it happened, and then the army cracked down on the protesters, shot at many of them. A good number of people killed. I personally, in an investigation I did, said I tracked up to 20. Lots of people injured. Nothing, no attempt to compensate them, no attempt to get their lives back on track. So those who were involved with the protest, who indeed are aware of the deaths, of the injuries, are still aggrieved. And then you want to reopen the toll gate. Mind you, there are enough. So when people say, what happened on October 20? Where are the deaths? Where are the victims? Where are their families? Where are their friends? There are a number of them who want to talk, and the panel hasn't had time for them. And then you have people like that, and then you reopen the toll gate.
How do you mean the panel hasn't had time for that?
So, the panel was set up before October 20 by Governor Sanwo-Olu to take care of issues relating to police brutality and SARS abuse. If it wasn't set up for the Lekki toll gate incident, even though it's one of what it. So there are a number of issues for the panel to deal with. You have people. Lagos is massive, it's big, and then the abuse that people were facing in the hands of SARS, widespread abuse. So there were lots of people coming to the panel daily, and then the panel hasn't had time to speak with people who have things to say about the toll gate incident. And then you are reopening the toll gate. So it's basically, for me, a natural reaction. Even though, as a Nigerian who has followed events in the last few months, I was shocked that people indeed came out. In my opinion, these are some of the bravest Nigerians you would ever find. After what happened on October 20, that there were still young Nigerians who were willing to stake their lives. It shows that we've reached a point where the youth are finally woken up, and you can't keep pushing them to the back.
So there's the argument, about the fact that as much as there's a freedom of gathering, freedom of speech and all of that, government also has the right to foresee danger and halt it. People have tried to draw parallels with what happened in the United States, when there were protests on the 6th of January, protesters stormed the Capitol building and tried to, there was a lot of, 5 people died eventually, and we saw what followed immediately. There was a lockdown of the capital city, Washington, D.C., and, protests and gatherings were completely, stopped. Why is that different here? Why can't that parallel be drawn here when on the 20th of October, and it's scenes across the country, like you've said, we saw death, we saw destruction, and government has said, okay, we don't want this to repeat again, and no protests can hold. Why can't that be the same thing?
We should never have a parallel in that situation. The guys at Lekki tollgate, did they try to break into the National Assembly? Did they try to break into Aso Rock? Two completely different cases. Not a single NSAS protester who had any weapon. Those guys who went to Capitol, they broke in. Not one, or any weapon you saw on that protest, you need to ask the government how it happened. We saw videos in Abuja here, people in Porsche cars, coming out of Porsche cars, imagine with clubs, with sticks, with cutlasses. And they were in very nice cars. Who brought them? So no point for drawing parallel, because one, these guys were not trying to break into, and they were in a public space protesting. None of them was armed. Not on October 20 or before, not yesterday. Now, we haven't learnt in this country. If you look at some of the biggest, earlier in February was the 50th anniversary of the death of Kunle Adepoju at the University of Ibadan. What happened? Police tried to intervene with force. Same thing with Ali Must Go protest. It had started for a few days. It was peaceful in the 70s, I think. And then the police tried to, stop it with force at Unilag. And then it spread to other schools. We have not still learned all these years. And it's a shock that the military hasn't learned. Those in charge of the use of force officially haven't learned that when you try to break up protesters with force, you don't quell it that way. They still come back. What the police needed to do yesterday was just stay and watch them. Look, these guys would shout and scream from morning to evening and get tired and go home. And nothing would happen. Yes. They arrested Domoyele Sowore on the eve of, how many people were at that protest? Even the revolutionary protest that it started in 2020. In places like Ondo, Ekiti, where you arrested, how many of them? Ondo did not have up to 100 protesters. What are you saying? What problem, what havoc were they going to wreak? The panel, as a matter of fact, should have known that it was going to be in bad taste to allow for the reopening of the tollgate. Why? Those who were heavily involved in the protest have said that, members of the panel, like Reno, who resigned, and the other guy who jointly signed the statement, I said the LCC has not cooperated with the panel in trying to unravel what went down at that toll gate. I've spoken with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people who had tried to approach LCC before October 20 to say, we are doing candlelight, 8 p.m., 9 p.m. for people killed by SARS in the past. Can you please turn off the light? And they said, this light has never gone on. So why did it go off on October 20? Unanswered question that only LCC, can help unravel. And it hasn't happened. So if you have a body that has not cooperated with the panel, and you are saying the toll gate should be real, it's in bad taste. Yes, it's a business venture at the end of the day, people are employed, but you also have to understand that lives have been lost. People have been maimed. Waking up on one day with your 2 legs, and then you are back in the evening, one of your legs has been amputated, or 2-3 days later, because we are at the toll gate. There are unaddressed issues. And until those, if the government is serious about addressing the worries of the protesters, the government knows where to find them. Government agents know where to find these people. The people who called Dabira Adeyinka and threatened, the person who called is linked to the government some way or the other. This guy says, look, we are the ones benefiting from the state, and you can't come and disturb us. This state has been in existence long before you. Stop all what you are doing or we kill you. The punishment for sin is death. And that guy says that guy is linked to government some way. You get? The people who have been threatened, who have been, the government can't find them and indeed dialogue with them. So yes, this has happened. What can we do to make life, how can we get your life back on track? That hasn't happened. And then you want to reopen the toll gate and you expect them to be happy with you.
Well, I think we're joined online now by Reno Duola, who, like you mentioned, there was a member of the Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry, and she resigned during the week when the vote happened. Reno, if you can hear me, how are you doing?
Hi, good afternoon, Ebuka.
Thank you very much for joining us. First of all, you have had your bank accounts closed at some point. I know you also had issues getting your Nigerian passport renewed and all of that. Why was this the breaking point for you?
Well, it's been something that I've been thinking about, when my bank account was frozen, I really didn't think much about it because I knew that despite everything that would happen or that is happening or that happened, we have to get justice for victims was the utmost priority. Then followed by my passport being seized and a lot of other intimidation tactics the government was using. I still, kept believing that the panel would give justice to those victims. But however, when it came to the decision on the toll gate, my loyalties have always been known from the right from the start, and my stance has always been known. Justice for the victim has to be the priority and the utmost and of utmost importance before anything else can come to reality. I mean, the courts were burnt in Lagos. Nobody's asking to rebuild the courts. Bus station. I mean, the one in Oyingbo was burnt. Nobody's asking that how would they rebuild or how would they buy back all the buses that were burnt. But the toll gate is the utmost priority. We're yet to listen to these victims. The army is refusing to come to the panel. We're yet to know of the level of involvement that LCC has, coupled with the fact that this same LCC refused to release their servers to the forensic expert so that the forensic expert can authenticate the footage which they submitted to the panel. And the panel goes ahead to release the toll gate to them. I mean, it was just the height of it all for me. And I said, you know what, the government is only out to use us for affirmative actions. I don't think that they really, really intend to make this work, because I think for me, all they want to do is to just whitewash their image with the panel, make it look as if they are doing something, which is literally nothing to me. So that's why I said, you know what, I think this is not working for me. The panel is going to one of the most important things is that the victims are given a space, they're given opportunity to hear their voices, to hear their complaints. But is the government really committed to the youth demand? And looking at what happened to yesterday to the protesters at the Lekki toll gate, you would agree with me that I was entirely right.
Okay, I want to ask a two-part question now. First of all, you've been on the panel for a couple of months now. Working with your fellow panelists up until this point, did you feel like there was something that was going to be achieved with regards to your other fellow panel members? There were 9 of you, 5 voted for the toll gate to be open, 4 others voted against. Up until the vote happened, did you feel a sense of a division on the panel? And secondly, there's been arguments about the fact that the youth needs to be represented on this panel. Now you've left. It seems like we're losing out even more. What's your take on that?
The first question, I felt like we're on a course of social change, on a course of reformative social change, where victims get to heal. It's not only by paying people money or compensation that they get to heal. Some people just want an avenue where they tell the world what has happened to them, what they've passed through the hands of these police officers. They just want to let people know that they are also victims of the system. They've also been brutalized and harassed. So during those times I was sitting, I felt like yes, we're on a course, because these people kept coming, kept telling their horrorful stories. I mean, these stories were horrific, to be honest. Some were amputated, some most of them extrajudicial killings, and the rest. The stories were really horrific. So I felt like the most important we're halfway through the course, because telling your story alone is one way of healing. Then we'll talk about compensation, we'll talk about healthcare, we'll talk about therapy, and the rest. So there was no division in the panel, because yes, the phase we're on was listening to the victims. Now it came to making major decisions on the panel. I mean, this panel wasn't the initiative of the government. The NTAS protest led to the youth demanding for a 5 for 5, which the judicial panel was part of these 5 for 5 demands. And before those panels could work, there had to be youth representative on them, because there was already this distrust between the government and the people. So without the youth representatives representing the youth constituency, those panel would have never moved to its hearing phase. So we are an important part of the decision. Now, when it came to the decision of the Lekki toll gate, we were on the opposite side. We believe that the toll gate should not have been opened right away, and told the chairman. But 5 other members of the panel said they believe that the toll gate should be open. Now, we said we need to talk about this issue very carefully, because our constituency is expecting something from us. We're not yet to help the government justify itself. We're yet to get justice for the victims. So we just found out, the rest of the panel members decided to go in and make the announcement without us. in the absence of the youth reps and civil society members. I mean, it literally turned to something else. Until that point, there was no division. We're working
So what
all
happens
fine.
to
I
your
think
what
even
happens to your
right now,
position
the
on the
panel.
panel now? What happens to your seat on the panel?
Well, like I told someone yesterday, I think that we would see. There's still one other youth rep on the panel. I believe that he has the capacity to still keep fighting and keep standing. But to my own morals and conscience, I do not believe that I can remain on the panel and allowed my name to be rubber stamped into major decisions that I do not agree with, that I do not believe represent the best interest of the constituency I am there to represent. I'm not
Okay.
there for myself. I'm there for the youth.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Renu, now. Fisayo, we've heard her. What's the way forward now? I know you've talked about the fact that justice has to be served. We looked at a lot of the images and people who were even walking by yesterday that got arrested. We saw videos of Mr. Macaroni, who's a popular comedian, putting out a video today talking about how he was beating up with 39 other people who were arrested. I mean, his eyes were blood red at the time. So the one thing we're fighting seems to still be going on. Is there a way out?
Only government knows, to be honest. The Lagos State government only can answer that question because the government has both the yam and the knife. The panel, for instance, was set up to attend to victims of EndSARS-related abuse and related matters. The panel was not set up strictly to investigate the Lekki tollgate incident. So as it is, you have the army that has withdrawn, and the panel says, if the army withdraws, there is nothing we can do about it. The panel, at the start, in the early days, was trying to gain access to Ikoyi Military Hospital, and then there was a lot of fuss about, why can you come in uninvited? And it's clear the army is above the law. It's not normal in a democracy, but we are not even running a normal system of government in this country. We know that. I mean, the president issued a statement after what happened in Lekki, and he could not even mention it. So a lot of things are wrong with the way we are set up at the moment. And only the government, indeed, can show that it is ready for progress. Yesterday was Occupy Lekki tollgate. Policemen came, arrested people unnecessarily, beat some of them up. At Ajeniji police station, a policeman slapped a lady and said, now be EndSARS, Abi. That still happened yesterday. Policemen, you saw the video of Mr. Macaroni, and they still had the effrontery to record that video because the police did. The people who were being beaten, who were crammed up in that space, couldn't have been the ones recording. Of course, you know, you get to a police cell, the first thing they take your phones from you. So police had the effrontery to record and still put it out. So it shows we are not ready. It shows that the police itself as an institution is still not ready. It shows the army as an institution is not ready, is above the law. The government doesn't seem to be interested. The government's interest looks to be, forget what has happened and let's move forward. And that's difficult to take for anyone in his right senses.
Quick yes or no question now. Do you still have faith in this panel?
In this panel,
the judicial panel.
Do I have faith? No. I tell you what. So look, the handwriting is on the wall. Before now, I honestly try to publicly avoid saying anything, about yes or no to the panel. But the handwriting is on the wall, and it's clear for everybody to see that there's really nothing. The panel can't. I mean, the panel admitted it itself that if the army doesn't come, there's nothing we can do. This is a panel set up by the government. LCC is owned by the government. Used to be a public-private, but now owned by the Lagos State government. LCC truck was used to arrest people yesterday. You saw it. Even though it broke down, they pushed it. But it was a truck by LCC. Why does LCC have a black barrier? And why is it available to the police? So it's by them, for them. It's hard to have faith. So just before we go, a doctor at Reddington, came to the panel, and said that Reddington was overwhelmed. And also when people say that Lekki, who died, who was injured, and I'm like, you are making mockery of your sense of logic. Reddington is one of the best private hospitals in this country. If the doctor says we are overwhelmed, that word says so much.
We have to take a break now. When we come back, we'll get a final word from Renu Ojuola, who's joining us online, and we'll be right back. Don't go away. All right, welcome back. We're talking about the Lekki tollgate incident, which occurred yesterday, and I have here with me Fisayo Soyombo. Very quickly now, There were a lot of arguments about, the protests even work. This was back in October when the NSAS protests were going on. People seemed to lose faith, when the 20th of October incident happened. Now it has come back again. Is this the end of protests?
This is just the beginning. I can assure you that as a journalist who has watched developments, it's just the beginning. For the first time, in as long a time as forever, people in government were shocked. They were shaken to their foundations. You talk to people, they didn't believe it. They were helpless. How do we get these people off the streets? And then, as an individual, I didn't expect that people would come out yesterday, but they did. In fact, I didn't believe it was going to hold until the eve of, of the protest. And I spoke with people and I said, look, we are coming out. Nigerian young people have seen that they can indeed be powerful. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's clearly stated already that these young guys are not willing to run into hiding.
Yeah.
There will be more protests. It's just a matter of time because I don't see things changing. I don't see the people I don't see police brutality stopping, even if slightly it can reduce. The things that brought people out. Look, a lot of people, young people, went to that protest ground. I can tell you, because they had their drinks, there's food. And then it's not bad. They are saying they want a better Nigeria. Let's ask for a better Nigerian and drink and eat while doing it. There's poverty. These things are still there. Until you solve all those problems, people will find avenues to connect with those who call for protest.
All right, thank you very much. Renu, I know you're still there with us. Now, what happened yesterday is directly linked pretty much to, the votes of the panel and, the reopening of or the repossession, whatever word the government has been using, of the Lekki tollgate. Do you feel vindicated by your decision to leave the panel, seeing what happened yesterday, or are you now worried about how things are going to turn out going forward?
Both. I would say that on one hand, I feel vindicated that this is what I was talking about. On the other hand, I'm very worried about what is going to happen next. Because you don't expect me to remain on a panel that is supposed to be for restitution and reconciliation. A panel that the government said, oh, you know what? This is evidence that we've listened to the demands of these young people. Look at the panel. They demanded for a panel and we set one up just for them to stop the protest, just for them to go back home. Now, while on that panel, people decided to come out to protest because of a decision which the government literally took on its own because they were pressuring the panel. They kept applying times without number for the toll gate to be reopened as if that was their utmost priority. And you went ahead yesterday to brutalize people, to beat up protesters. These people they've not even started protesting when they were thrown into Black Maria and passed and transported to over 3 police stations in Lagos State. Literally, the police will tell you most of the times they don't work on Saturdays. The courts don't work on Saturdays. You cannot bail somebody on the weekend. You have to wait till Monday. Yesterday, a mobile court was set up around 6 p.m. in the evening to arraign protesters on frivolous charges after beating them, after smashing their phones, after seizing lots of their properties. And you still think that I would remain on the panel? My conscience wouldn't have allowed me to if I hadn't resigned on Friday. On the other hand, I'm worried about the government commitment to all this. They are telling the media, they are telling the whole world, they are telling Nigerians that we're listening to these people, these young children, they just want to destroy things. They just want to go ahead to threaten national security. They literally called protesters terrorists. Meanwhile, right in front of the press,
okay.
Like I said, you are beating
well,
up
thank
people.
You very much, Renu. Actually, before we go,
Did
your bank account functional again?
Yes, it has been unfrozen after the court ordered CBN.
Renu, can you hear me?
However, we're still going to go ahead to sue Central Bank of Nigeria because they said they were going to make investigations. They accused over 20 people.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Of money laundering and terrorism, and they didn't do any investigations.
All right, very well. Thank you very much, Renu Duala, and of course, Fisayo Soyombo for joining us on the show today. This is a very fast unfolding scenario across the country.